You left 3 days ago, and the moment your car pulled out of the driveway, something began happening in your yard that you have never seen. Not because it is hidden, because by definition, you were not there to see it. The birds in your yard right now are not simply surviving without you. They are doing something far more specific. They are waiting. This channel exists to show you what is actually happening in your yard, in the moments you are never there to witness. Subscribe to Bird Pulse, because what you are about to learn will change the way you come home. Here is something that will fundamentally change how you understand the birds in your yard. They do not have clocks. What they have is something more precise. They have you. Cornell Lab of Ornithology researchers studying supplementary feeding behavior documented this with remarkable specificity. Chickadees that visited a specific feeder regularly had mapped the human's routine to within minutes. 7 to 9 minutes after the kitchen light turned on, they arrived. Not at sunrise, not at a fixed time. 7 to 9 minutes after your specific light. Your morning had become their morning. Your routine had become their map of the day. And the morning you are gone. The absence registers within the first hour of sunrise. The chickadees cycle past the feeder. They perch in nearby branches. They wait. They do not abandon the location. They check and check again. That checking, researchers say, is itself the evidence. It tells you they had built their morning around yours. By the end of the first day, the cardinal that usually appears at dusk near your back window begins passing earlier, testing whether the variable has changed permanently. The sparrows and juncos redistribute themselves, spending less time at the feeder, more time at natural sources. None of this looks dramatic from above, but each small adjustment is your yard recalibrating around the new reality that you are not part of today. By day 2 and day 3, the data becomes unmistakable. Feeder visits drop by more than half, even if the feeder is still full. This is the part most people misunderstand when they come home and the yard feels empty. The birds did not leave because the feeder was empty. They left because 2 consecutive mornings without the human attached to that feeder was enough information. 2 failures. And a chickadee demotes a resource, not from memory, from updated memory. The feeder does not disappear from her mental map. It moves from primary resource to backup resource. She returns less, not because she has forgotten. She returns less because she remembered, and the memory now contains a warning. But here is what does not change. The birds do not leave the yard. They continue using the trees, the shrubs, the water sources. Your yard is still their territory. What changes is the specific node in that territory that you represented. You were a high-value, predictable, time-stamped resource. And when you go, your node downgrades, while the rest of the territory stays exactly the same. This is why coming home after a week away often feels wrong. The yard is full. The feeder is the part that went quiet. And the feeder went quiet because you were attached to it. Now, here is the part that almost nobody understands. Your birds do not remember the location of the food. They remember you. Research by Dr. John Marzluff at the University of Washington has demonstrated that backyard species, particularly corvids, but also chickadees and titmice, are capable of recognizing specific human faces and remembering individuals for years. The face alone is enough to trigger the memory of every interaction associated with that face. The visual profile she built of you, the sound of your voice near the feeder, the rhythm of your hand when you refilled it, the angle of your shadow when you stepped onto the porch. All of it stored in a region of her brain that handles long-term social memory. When you are gone, that file stays open. She is not waiting for the seed. She is waiting for you. And when your absence stretches past a week, something quieter begins. Something almost no one sees because no one is there to see it. The bird who knew you best, the one who had built the tightest routine around your appearance, is the slowest to leave. The chickadee that came to the same branch every morning continues to come to that branch. For days after the resource has gone quiet. She does not feed, she perches, she watches the back door, and then she leaves and returns later and watches again. Ornithologists studying this in supplementary feeding contexts call it expectancy maintenance. The bird is not just remembering, she is actively allocating energy to the possibility that you will come back. That allocation has a cost, and the fact that she pays it tells you something about how deeply your specific presence was encoded. Meanwhile, the rest of the yard is reorganizing. The dominant birds at your feeder, the ones who held priority access while you were there, lose that priority when the resource goes unreliable. Birds lower in the previous hierarchy begin testing the feeder more aggressively. If the food runs out, they move on. If a neighbor is feeding, the population shifts toward that yard. But the birds who knew you specifically, they retain that file. Studies on chickadee spatial memory have shown these birds can remember the location of thousands of cached food items for months. They remember the humans associated with reliable food sources for at least as long. When you return, the response is not random. The birds who recognize you respond first. The new arrivals, the ones who came during your absence, respond to nothing. They have no file on you yet. This is why your return often feels uneven. Some birds appear within hours. Others take days. You are not imagining the difference. You are watching the old residents recognize you, while the new ones do not. Here is what triggers the recognition response the moment you return. It is not your face from a distance. It is not your voice from inside the house. It is the specific combination of motion and sound your routine produces. The kitchen light turning on at the right hour. The back door opening with its specific sound. The shape of you crossing the porch at the angle they know. When all of these signals align, the birds who knew you fire what researchers describe as a recognition response, a sudden increase in feeder activity, an approach to perches closer to the house than they have used in days, a low-frequency vocalization that some ornithologists have begun describing as a greeting call. This response fires within 30 minutes of your arrival, before you have even refilled the feeder, because the trigger is not the food. The trigger is you, and then there is the part that is the hardest to write about. Long-lived backyard birds, especially corvids, can retain memory of a specific human for years. There are documented cases. Crows continuing to visit the property of a person who fed them, after that person had moved away, after that person had passed. The birds did not know the person was gone. They only knew the rhythm had stopped, and so they kept checking, sometimes for months, sometimes for longer. The bird does not have the concept of someone no longer being able to come outside. What she has is the absence and the memory of what came before the absence. So she checks the branch. She checks the porch. She checks the window where the shape of you used to appear. The next time you come home from a few days away, watch the first hour. Watch the cardinal who lands on the same branch he always uses. Watch the chickadee who comes to the feeder before you have even filled it. Watch which birds appear immediately and which ones take their time. You are not seeing random movement. You are seeing the result of a memory of you that stayed active the entire time you were gone. The file never closed. And in keeping it open, in checking the branch, checking the porch, checking the window, she was doing the thing that is hardest to say plainly, but truest to say at all. She was keeping the door open. Not because she expected anything specific, because the file was still active, and the file does not close on its own. Tell me in the comments, have you ever come home from a trip and noticed a specific bird find you faster than the others? Which species was it? And what did it do? I want to hear your story. I read every single one. Welcome to Bird Pulse. The yard remembered. They remembered. And now you know what was happening in your absence that you were never there to see.